Oh, it's not what I wanted. Ah,
Okay, I think we must be live now.
we are.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you, Jackie, for allowing us to use your platform since my platform was bust this evening, but the wonders of technology do allow us to continue. I'm Sonia Faloyan, and this is May of 2023, and May is Mental Health Month. And so tonight we're going to have a discussion. I'm going to have a discussion with two amazing women that are very dear to me and have impacted my life just tremendously. Okema McCrae, who is in North Carolina right now, and with Jackie Kimball, who is in Kansas City, Missouri. And I am presently in Chapala, Mexico, where I will be until next month. I'll be coming back to the States next month. But I wanted to not only talk about mental health, but I wanted to talk about the connection between financial health and mental health and why it is so important that Black women, that women, but and Black women especially, prioritize financial health and mental health. And so I wanted to ask you, the two of you, what your thoughts are about that.
Well, I'll go first. I think it's incredibly important that we recognize that our financial health impacts our mental health and vice versa. That road goes both ways. So many of us tie our identity to our economic situation. And
Mhm.
that's something that I experienced all through life. It was go to college and get a job, get a good paying job. But what does that mean? And how good paying job as opposed to what? And so understanding what your financial situation is, but also understanding how finance works. And that information is for every nowadays, especially with technology, with Google, with platforms like this. There's really no excuse, there's no reason not to get that information. I'm a little bit older. God has graced me to enter into my sixth decade, and so saying that growing up, I did not have a healthy relationship with money, did not have a healthy relationship with finance. And part of that came from my mom was a single woman. Of course, being a single Black woman here in the United States, that's a whole nother situation. But when when I do not have, since I did not have, excuse me, a very I didn't have a healthy relationship with money and economics and being able to talk about that. And one of the most important things that it affects is how you pass that knowledge or lack thereof down to your children. And that's something that I have seen, really probably in the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years or so. I began to hear it in their conversation, and because they had been, you know, I was single mother, and so they had been with me most of the time, and so they picked up on the fears that I had. They picked up on the lack of knowledge, and
Mhm.
and instead gauging their economics and their knowledge by buzzwords, just what they would hear or whatever. And we were not talking about money at all. Um, and so, it's never too late to start a course. And now, from there, as far as they're concerned, I'm talking about it too much. But you really cannot talk about it too much. And as Black women, Black community overall, Black and Brown community overall, but especially the Black community, especially with Black women, we are playing catch up economically.
Mhm.
And not only are we playing catch up economically, but Statistically speaking, we're going to outlive our husbands, if we're married. Uh, Unfortunately, we may end up being
Hmm.
divorced and we're going to be the sole breadwinner. And those types of things can wear you down mentally. And so recognizing that relationship is extremely, extremely important. Very important.
I would agree. And the part you said about catching up, that's so real because there is a definite income gap. There's a gender gap and there's an income inequality gap.
Hmm.
And so one of the reasons why I do center my YouTube channel and my work on the needs of Black women is because it's my way of helping us to address that gap. Um, I know that, um, uh, when women are healthy in a family, we're going to have a healthy community because women hold things together. Women are the fiber and the thread. That is no shade upon the men, of course, who have very important work in our community. It's not shading anybody. It's looking at the real and present income gaps in our community because of so many of the structural barriers that have affected our families from historical times. We have an income gap, we have a mass incarceration issue, we have a pay gap, we have the fact that we're probably the one of the highest educated groups in the United States and the world, and we have the most student loan debt because we are not able to go into um, college and you know write a check for our tuition. Um, the issues are vast and wide, and the other thing is because of that, there's been a lot of shame in our community. We don't want to talk about it, but we really need to talk about it. And so I do hear discussions about money. I don't hear enough discussions about money from Black women, from Black men, because there's stigma. So I know that when we have conversations like this and we tell our stories, we can begin to knock down those barriers and that stigma and heal because our stories are very powerful. What do you think,
Absolutely.
Okina?
Well, tying the two together, what you're talking about, mental health and finance. Like Jackie said, those two things go hand in hand. If your finances are great, you know, um, you might be able to sleep better at night. You know, and if they're not, then it might keep you up at night. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I think experienced um, all different uh, shades of either being up or down, at different times in my life. Like Jackie said, being raised by a single mother, which my father, who did pay for us, I say, it wasn't enough though.
Mm-hmm.
We have a system that says how much a mother needs to care for her children,
Uh,
but in this system, it calculates the our new system. I don't know back in the day how it was, but the new system looks at the mother, and if the mother makes more money than the father makes, then we are stigmatized that way as well, or to say, well, I'll say not stigmatized but punished in some ways
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
because we make more money, but that more money does not take into account all the things that go into taking care of the children. So it's a lot of burdens around being able to just care for your kids, and I'm just speaking from a Black woman who experienced that. So caring for your children, and all the while working and trying to maintain, and it's just I've seen myself personally very hard times around this topic. And just this year, I began to think about and have conversations like we're having now about that mental health aspect of it all. Never really addressed that. Just tried to learn, more about finances, and tried to really look at it from that angle. Well, maybe if I know better, I'll do better,
Mm-hmm.
but never really addressing what actually happened um, to me while I was in a space of lack, um, in a divorce, and what that was, how that really affected me. You know, um, I called it financial abuse. There is such a thing.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
And, so for me, I can say that those two things, they go hand in hand. They, like I said, sometimes you're great, when you're winning, I say, everything is good, but when you're not, you got the shame, you got the hurt, you know. Yeah, so for me, it's been I can see now being older how it really affected who I am today. Because like I said, my mom was single, she was raising us, and I saw what she was doing. I remember what the things that she did, and I recalled what it was like to I have a younger brother, and I remember deciding myself not to go to a 4-year university straight out of school because I knew that my brother, who was a black man, he needed an education.
Mm, mm,
The black man. I know that in this society, a lot of times we as Black women can go out and almost earn more money a lot of times. But our Black men, if they come in and they don't have the education, they don't have all these things. So I kind of took a step down and
mm,
was like, I know that my brother needs this education. I'll pay for mine. I'll go get a job. I'll do the things I need to do to get to where I need to get to. But he needs to be educated. I can educate myself, but he needs to go to school. He needs that actual paper,
Mm-hmm.
and I got mine later. I went to community college. I didn't go to the 4-year university. So just as women, as you spoke about, Sonia, holding it all together. At a young age, at 18, I made that decision
mm, mm,
Mm-hmm.
mm,
for to step aside and allow him because I just felt like he wouldn't have a hand up if he didn't have an education. So
wow, wow,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
mm,
You speak some to just the sacrifices that we make too on behalf of our family, on behalf of our community, which is really a hallmark of Black community life, Black women's lives. That sacrifice is built in. It's built in, in various ways: community work, church work, volunteer work. It's almost a duty and it's expected. And on some level,
mm,
there there's there's a reason for it. There's a need for it. Um, but it's not always easy for us to find the proper balance when we're lacking in other areas.
mhm,
Um, I had two parents, but they had very different ideas about money. My father was pretty much spendthrift. If he had it, he was going to spend it. And my mother was more practical. She's the one that bought the houses and she's the one that did the planning. My dad would go along, but my mom was the mastermind.
mm,
But um, but my mother did not have financial education.
mm,
And so there were a couple of investments and things. She even had an inheritance from another family member. And she trusted the banker, and she took her money to the bank, and we never know what happened to that money. And she really didn't know because she didn't have the foundation. She had practical information, she had common sense, but she didn't know anything about compound interest. She didn't know anything about the rule of 72. She didn't know anything. She thought putting her money in the bank was the safe place for it. And that lack of education has cost us as a community fortunes. It's cost us generational wealth. Um, and I also know that for me, I mean, because I have been a single parent, with two marriages that did not go the whole distance. Um, I know there were so many nights when I was up late at night crying, trying to figure out what I was going to do and how, how that affected my children, and how I think, on some levels, my daughters probably didn't have some respect for me because I couldn't always keep the lights on. And, I had an eviction, I lost a car, lost two homes, um, and the shame that came with that, having to wanting to make up and to, make it better. That the mental health aspect of that, just the depression from trying to make ends meet, trying to juggle here and trying to figure this out and how to work this out. And um, it takes a tremendous toll. Um,
Absolutely.
but I do know that getting getting proper financial education for me was the key to turning things around. It wasn't even so much a matter of how much money I had. It was being able to come up with a plan and being able to know that I could do something with what I did have. And if I didn't have it, I could figure out a way that I was going to,
Mm-hmm.
having a plan made a difference for me. And it enabled me to move past the guilt and shame because I was actively working on something that was going to make a difference for not just for me, but for my children and for my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Money is infused in every aspect of our lives. There's nothing in our lives that is not affected by our
Absolutely.
finances. Nothing,
Nothing.
Absolutely.
nothing. So, what I'm hoping is that as we're talking about self-care, as we're talking about, having time to woosah and do all those things, that we're also understanding that having a financial self-care plan is just as important as being able to have time to reflect and rest and, get our nails done, whatever, do what we need to do for the outer beauty. Um, Taking care of the inner self, but taking care of the finances
Mm-hmm.
is just a part of that.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And Sonia, the love this conversation, by the way. So thank you for this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one thing you mentioned was about, the resources that we have available to us. Um, there's so many things. I think Jackie, you mentioned this, we can find online, so many different tools and outlets where we can find things. But I also think about our older generation who is still here, yet if their children are not educated, then they suffer in, at their latter stage of life.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true.
Absolutely.
They don't know about um wills, estate planning, probate, these
Mm-hmm.
things that, will have a family in, it could put you in financial ruins.
Mm-hmm.
You um just not even understanding. So I think we need to take education from not just from young people on down to, all the way through to our latter generations that are still with us. Um, and that's something that I have recently become very passionate about with, losing my mom. And my mother was a cash person. She paid cash for everything. So it was like, so with that, there's some good and there's also some bad because then you don't understand or learn how to understand certain things about the financial,
Hmm.
all the resources out there for you because she didn't use those.
Right.
She paid cash. She didn't, she would have a bank account, but if I'm buying a car, I'm paying for this car and we walking away with the title. Like very seldom did she finance things, and if she did, she got irritated by it. She didn't want to owe anybody money. And I
Hmm.
see that in a lot of the older generation, they don't want to, they don't want to owe people money. Therefore, some of them won't take advantage of some of the new things that are out here. You might have to subscribe you know, to learn more. That's just not what they do. And navigating that as their child, learning how to navigate and have those conversations with our older generations who are still here that we're trying to care for. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just
You
that,
know what? Well, you know what you said just reminds me that, when I think about the older generations, I think about, um, I didn't realize this at the time, but when I was in high school in the 70s and all that, women at that was it was a new thing for women to really be able to have their own bank accounts in their own names.
Absolutely.
Um, my mother navigated. I'm not sure when she did or how she did it. She was always pretty independent, but a lot of women were not able to have a bank account unless their husband signed for it. And also, a lot of banks were pretty discriminatory to our elder, our mothers and above
Mhm.
generation. They kept a lot of money in their mattresses,
the
because
match.
they didn't want to be treated like crap when they walked into an institution.
Yes. Yeah, the
So
mattress
so
was the
there's
bank.
yeah, the mattress was the bank, or the bra.
Or the
Yeah,
bra. Oh my God.
absolutely.
Yes, I was devastated by the bra money. Like, what's happening? What's coming out the bra?
Right.
Like,
You know, those barriers, I mean, those wounds are deep.
they're deep. Yes,
Absolutely.
they're deep.
Absolutely. And that created a lot of
Yeah.
distrust, from, and even there's still some. I mean, there's still
Absolutely.
some distrust because of
Mhm.
that. Some of it is well founded, and some of it is just strictly based in fear of the unknown.
Well, even
Yeah.
today, if you go to certain financial institutions, if you don't have a certain amount of money, they are not even going to have a conversation with you,
Absolutely.
period.
Yep. And they're charging you every month for not having a certain amount of money.
Right. Mm-hmm.
They do give you an account.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly right. It's exactly
Yeah.
right.
So again, um, we're still being punished or stigmatized because we don't have
Hmm.
a lot of money. And I cannot, I don't like the word, this credit worthiness, going into it immediately kind of to me attacks like your self-worth,
Hmm. Hmm.
your whole self,
Yeah.
um it just it I just wish that we could change the some of the language around it. It's a scary thing to, you know, even apply for something sometimes. You
Mm-hmm.
know, if you get it, okay, good. But if you don't, we're gonna send you the letter. And then this letter beats you up
Yeah.
and and reminds you of everything that might have done,
Hmm.
back when
Right.
you were going through a situation like we all talked about, going through a divorce or being apart. I told a story that on my page one time that talked about every time, after my divorce that I would go in and try to get something, they would ask me, what happened here?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I would have to relive
Yes.
the moment of losing a house,
Mm.
because I got to now tell you what happened here.
Right.
Well, sir, you can look and see that was a long time ago, and you can see, why can't you just look at what's happening right now? That was my thought. Why do I have to go back and explain to you what happened here if I've proven here for the last 4 years you don't see that?
Right.
So
Yeah.
why does that even matter?
Yeah.
And it's just that whole just just having to relive those traumas over and over again when we are out here just trying to, you know, to live like everyone else.
Mhm.
Like everyone else.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, reliving that trauma, and I'm telling you, it's the first time I've heard it framed that way, but that's exactly what it is. If that, glitch in your credit history, or that, that glitch in your bank account, or whatever caused that, that's a source of pain. And then for me having to explain it to you so that you can determine whether or not I'm worthy of whatever product it is I'm after, that is compounding the mental stress. That is compounding. I mean, you can, the word self-esteem, of course, is bandied about, all the time, but that chips away at your self-esteem. It
Yes.
does. And
Yep.
one of the things, um, in being educated about finances, is that you can come when you become educated about economics, you become educated about finances, the questions and the things that are legal to be inquired about and what's not. And you can start to frame those questions back. Well, that was X years ago. That has nothing to do with, like what you were saying, okay, what's going on here. The window you need to be looking at, according to, FCRA or whatever, is 2 years, 3 years. That's what we need to focus on. And, the other stuff is the other stuff. But when you understand, and this is really any subject, I'll speak for myself, I then lose the fear of the unknown, because
Mhm.
I understand how it works. I understand if A and B happens, C is going to happen. And if C happens, these are the options that I have to deal with it. And that reduces the stress tremendously. And it also takes it off of me personally. You know,
Mhm.
yes, okay, yeah, that happened. That happened. But here's how I dealt with it. And let's move forward. And you don't want to deal with it because of that, there's somebody somewhere around here who will. And as I become more educated and allow myself to become more educated, like I said, that fear goes away, but my personal power increases.
Absolutely.
And that counts volumes. That counts volumes. And, you know, I going back to the concept of having, to make up time, as far as being educated financially and being able to talk about it. And that is the value of a conversation like this, because everything that the three of us have talked about, we're not the only women experiencing, or have experienced, or will
Absolutely.
experience, but because of our being willing and brave enough and courageous enough
Right.
to talk about it, that's going to help some other woman someplace else.
Absolutely.
Yes.
It
Yep.
absolutely will. I had a car repossessed. Um, it would have been in 20, I think 16, if I'm not mistaken,
Only
and
one?
just one, just one,
Like,
and
like you said, only one.
just one, and when and so and here's the thing, because I was so scared, I didn't know how to, I was scared to answer the phone calls, scared to reply to the letters. Knew I was behind, had made a payment. I knew it was going to happen, but because I didn't know how to approach it, and didn't dare tell anybody about it.
Mhm.
And so the
Yeah.
where I live, I live in an apartment complex, and my car literally is parked outside my bedroom window. I heard them when they took it, because I could hear something going on outside. And my youngest son's going to school the next morning, and walking out to the bus. It's like he said, "Mom, your car's not here." And I just said, "Yeah, I know." I mean, then my other son was still here. My older son, who was I think in between college or he may have graduated from college at that time. And we had a conversation, and my son, my oldest son, and I was telling what was happening. He was like, "Why haven't you been?" He said, "Are we okay?" He asked, "Are we okay?" And I was like,
Mm,
"No." I said, "No, this is things that are going on. I wasn't working,
mm,
um, not full time. I burned through my 401k, my
mhm,
pension, excuse me, burned through my pension. And I
mm,
was trying to kind of what you referring to what you were saying, Okima. I'm trying to keep it up here so the kids are safe and don't understand,
Mhm.
don't have to know what's going on. And my oldest son, he said, pride cometh before the fall.
Mm.
When because I didn't want to tell him
Wow.
what was
Mm.
happening financially. And and that was a wake up call for me
mhm,
because I saw how it was really affecting them. Now I had no car. Now, my
mhm,
son had a car. He had his car, but with that, and of course, there's a lot of shame. I still didn't tell a lot of people. I didn't tell anybody that my car had been repossessed for a while. And I happened to be talking to one of my other girlfriends, and was, we were talking, and she was talking about her struggle with debt. And then we'd known each other a long time and had never had that conversation. And
Wow.
she, in an effort to get her debt under control, she moved in with her daughter and son-in-law at the time
mhm,
so that she could get her debt under control. And she was crying on the end of the phone. And, I was crying not because of her situation, but I was crying because I knew the depth of the pain,
yeah,
and I knew that my story
mhm,
was not that far from hers, but
Mhm.
I was still too ashamed to tell it.
Right.
And it still, it took a while. It
Mhm.
took a while. Um, Obviously, got through it, what have you. And, but when I realized how, how valuable it is just to talk about it,
Mhm.
and, you know, everything happens in time, everything happens for a reason. And
mhm,
so, but to be able to take that stigma off of it
mhm,
and just be able to talk, this is what happened. And I can talk about it now. I can talk about these things now. And
mhm,
even obviously, I'm not out on the street corner talking about it, but when I'm talking with close friends, some family members, not all of them, some
mhm,
family members, but
mhm,
talking to and explain, okay, this is what's going on. And another huge thing for women, especially Black women, asking for help,
mhm.
Yes, yes. Being able to ask
asking,
for help. Yeah,
asking for help.
yeah,
You know, that takes a lot of courage.
does.
It
To
does.
ask for help, even just, and not necessarily monetary help,
Mhm.
but
Right.
advice. What can I do? What
What
should
can
I
I
do?
do?
Who can I talk to?
Mhm.
You know,
Even having a conversation with your creditor, like you said, not wanting to answer the phone. They
yes,
don't tell you about certain things they have to help you
absolutely,
unless you ask them for the
exactly.
help. You
Hmm.
have to know
Mhm,
the right questions to ask, goes right into that education.
Right,
mhm,
You got to
absolutely.
know the right questions to ask. They're not
Hmm.
just raising their hands and saying, "Hey, I can put that to the back of the lawn for you. You don't have to lose sleep tonight." Like, that's
mhm,
not what they
mhm,
do.
How about that?
You gotta ask, can you
Hmm.
move that for me? How many days do I have on this? I know I have a grace period.
Hmm. Yeah,
mhm, mhm.
yeah, yeah,
So I didn't learn that until
exactly,
I asked the right question.
exactly,
Mhm, mhm.
exactly.
So
And
true. True.
that the value of a conversation like this is we can advise each other, you know, ask this question, ask it this way. You know, you don't have to do X, Y, and Z. You have ABC options, you know, and that is the kind of thing I think that will help to galvanize and really, as long as we're willing to talk about it and talk about our finances honestly,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that we can move forward as a community. You know, our families are being fractured and torn apart because of economics.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's a whole nother conversation. But even just the things about that we're talking about here, um, is devastating, and has been devastating to families, to black families since, you know, 200-300 years. Um, it has been, and there's still so many vestiges of, you know, even when we, you know, were freed, you know, from slavery, you know, we didn't have economic education. I mean, it's okay, now you're free, go live. Well, how? I don't have a job. You know, we were never invited to those conversations, you know, at the table. We were never taught how to participate in the economy to better ourselves. We were taught to be workers, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and taught to be employees, taught to take care of things, but not to benefit from that. And
Mm-hmm.
those vestiges still hang around. Um, I think Sunny, you and I were talking about the other day about AI,
Mm-hmm.
and how, and Akima, yes, you were there too. So many black and brown people, men, women, are just in those positions where AI, you don't need to, we don't need a human in the drive-through at McDonald's,
Right.
you know, and it's imperative that we continue to educate ourselves, um, and take advantage of opportunities that are there. And there are opportunities that are out there for us. We got to keep talking about them, and got to keep just throwing our hat in the ring and keep reaching for them.
Well, you know, you talked about a little bit about the historical factors, but that I mean, a lot of the history also has led us, Black women especially, to not feel comfortable asking for help.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Sometimes you're out there on alone on a raft, and it's like, okay, who's where's the help gonna where's it coming from?
Exactly.
It
And
may not be in your circle.
right, it may not be in your circle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just as we talked about the impact of money, we talked about the impact of money on our mental health. But if our mental health isn't right, if we're anxious, depressed, sad, have given up hope, then that also means that we're not going to make good financial decisions either. So
Exactly.
one really does affect the other.
Yes, that
And I
shopping
think
therapy is real.
yes it is. And yes, yes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Real
Absolutely.
thing.
And you know, another aspect is when we are, those feelings, let's say, of anxiety, depression, you know, because of economics, we make bad decisions in other parts of our lives
Absolutely.
because of it.
Hmm.
Because of that, and it becomes. I know there's a psychological term for it. I don't know what it is, but you know, you're running in circles. You're running in circles.
Hmm.
Back up. I've been running in circles, you know, sometimes, because decisions. You know, every decision you make affects something else.
Absolutely.
and how you I always tell my children, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so
Mm-hmm.
you're making decisions over here based on really bad emotions, sometimes even good emotions, but you're making an emotional decision over here, you're going to have a result that you're not going to be prepared to handle. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of times that comes straight back to, to finances and economics. It's a huge when you ask that question, Sonia, I hadn't really thought about it. I knew it was a thing because I experienced it, but not really. I don't think really kind of fleshing out just how tight the relationship is between our finances, our economics, how we feel about that, and our mental health.
Absolutely.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And Jackie, you mentioned something about the McDonald's analogy around how they're doing AI there, and it made me think about how we are now almost a cashless society.
Exactly.
When you go into, because sometimes I have to go in there because my little one likes that place. And when you go in there now, you're standing at a kiosk
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
and nobody's learning how to count money.
Right,
Right.
You're going to
right.
take your money. You're going to do this thing right here at this machine. So it's even worse for this middle generation of children, that are coming up. They won't know anything about a bank balancing anything, or a
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
checking account, or
Tap, tap.
counting money, right? They
Mhm.
tap and pay it, right? So they won't know anything about that. So to me, that's creating a whole nother type of uh, a level of ignorance,
Mhm.
um for these children. They're going to have some things that we didn't have, and they're going to have probably more money than we have, but how are they managing that, the
Right.
education around that? Like, my son asked me, well, how do I go in there and open a bank account? I mean, I did all that for him, so he's just using the one I have for him,
Mm-hmm.
but one day he might want another, like, these are, but I went along with my mom into the bank and
Yes.
learned how to open up an account.
Hmm.
So I'm looking at myself going, well, I got to teach him because, you know, they don't, nobody talks about the basics anymore.
Exactly.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
the simple little basics, counting the money, balancing a checkbook, starting
Hmm.
your accounts. Nobody talks about the basics.
Well, even like what you said, uh, cashiers do not count change. They just hand you back what the machine says to give you back. They
Right.
don't know how to count it back to you to where it equals what you gave.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's a critical thinking skill, really,
Mhm.
Yes, it
because
is.
you're calculating, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and to not know how to do that is, I think that's a deficit.
It is.
Absolutely.
It
Ab-
is. So we're creating a cycle all
Hmm.
over again of children. They'll be theirs will be different than ours, a lot of ours, but it's still gonna be a cycle of, this. I don't know, because the others, people that are educated, are going to teach their children how to do these things.
Absolutely.
They're going to know whether they are standing in the line, participating in everything AI. They're going to know how to open up those accounts. They're going
yeah.
to know how to count money. They're going to know certain things because they're going to teach them the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and
And
one
I,
of the reasons, one of the things that I know to be true, I see it here in Mexico all the time, and that is they're not teaching their children to work for other people. They're teaching their children to have their own business and build wealth for their families. When we're sending our kids off to work in these corporations and other places, I mean that's fine, but we need to understand that we're sending people off to make other families
Well.
wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's
Mm-hmm.
what we're doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we've got to switch the mindset also to where we are engaging our children to build their own enterprises, their own businesses, so that that wealth can stay within the family and then within the community. And there's a certain security about that.
Yes,
There's a
there is.
certain security of having your family in business with you. There's a certain stability about not having to, not you're not going to get thrown out. You're going to have something to drive. You're going to have, working until everybody is secure, and then they go out for themselves. But when they go out, they're secure when they go out.
Yes.
So that's another part of our whole mental health thing is,
Mhm.
you know, need to be secure when we leave our families.
That's good,
Absolutely.
Sonia. Yeah, that
Absolutely.
being secure.
Well, I wanted to ask you, um, I want you, can each of you think of one thing that you want to share? I have a few things I want to share, but I want to ask you all, what is something that you can name something that people can do to begin to prioritize our financial and mental health? What's something that you can think of that would be helpful?
Listen to, I would say, make sure you're listening. If you listen to a podcast or read a book or something like that, make sure it's good sound advice. But understand that whatever I've experienced, whatever you've experienced, it's not the first time it's happened. It's not going to be the last time. And somebody else somewhere, probably closer than you realize to you, has experienced that same thing. And I think for me, getting the information, getting the education, and start using it. Start using it. I would, gosh, probably been almost 15, 16, 17 years ago. I would listen to Dave Ramsey, and a lot of stuff he said was it's just common sense. I mean, you can go off on a tangent on some of the things, but for the most part, what he said was sound, um, and applicable to every skin color in the rainbow. Um,
Mhm.
and I remember at the time I was working in an office, and we would talk about those things. And our boss was, I mean, he was a businessman, and he, would talk about doing different things financially. And I mean, I would hear it, I would understand it. I still couldn't believe that I could do it, and that was that was a big thing. But get the information. Realize it's not. Um, it's not some magic formula, and it's not something that is just the word I'm looking for. It's not something that, excuse me, it is something that is very understandable at its basic level.
Mhm.
I think once I understood that and realized, you can do progress little by little, progress, and that will help to bring that, you know, those emotional triggers, that stress down, and really kind of, it has helped me tremendously to be, on a more even keel about talking about money and dealing with my finances. Just get started. Maybe that's what I'm saying. Just get started.
Very
Get
good.
started. Yeah.
Okima?
Yeah, I think about myself and something that one of my friends told me when I was clearly my friends could see I was struggling, but coming down off of Pride Rock could
Mm,
really
Oh,
be
good,
helpful.
my Lord. Mhm,
good word.
mhm.
Um,
Oh,
and being open and letting people pour into you. There is always someone that's around you that is whether it's a teacher, if it's a child at school, or if it's a person in your friend group that you can pretty much look at them and think, okay, well, they look like they might have a good handle on things. Let me have an open conversation with them and
Mhm.
maybe be honest about where I am or about some things that I don't understand. And having that kind of talk with someone could really open up doors, for you.
Mhm.
Letting someone pour into you, is a thing that I had to become open to myself because, like living in the shadows, not wanting people to know what's going on with you, and oftentimes people, carrying on these facades, like they may appear on the outside to be this, you know, um, amazing individual, but all the while they're at home eating bowls of cereal because they're struggling too,
Mhm.
you know. So just really being open and honest, um, I think can help. Also, like Jackie said, I love the library. Like I was upset, very upset at COVID, but I love a good library book. And so I subscribe to a lot of either whether it's electronic books now or things I find in the electronic book space or in the library where you find books about simple finances. Like for me, as a mother, I wanted to learn how to stay at home this time. I want to be a stay-at-home mom.
Mm.
Like, and what that really meant was I wanted to understand how women stay at home, and how do they, and in my case, be a business owner and then be able to, still have a family. I wanted to understand that whole life and how it happens. So I got books about it to hear what families do that are, successful at having one income that is maybe that income that houses everything. But in my case, I was looking at it because I wanted to really throw myself into that entrepreneur world. So just really being open and educating yourself on those things that interest you,
Mhm.
the way you want to live your life after you've decided what that is, then going after it, like you said, Jackie, looking and just finding out what you can, the resources, starting that small business can help you stay at home, all those things that can help you, but just really educating yourself is, and being open and letting people pour into you, I think is
Mm.
key.
Mm.
It's very, very, very powerful. I think what I would add to I would definitely say that what you all have, your suggestions are, I think, top notch. I would say also just making self-care a priority, but considering self-care in a holistic manner. It's your mind, it's your body, it's our minds, it's our bodies, it's our spirits, and it's our finances. Um, and to really prioritize activities that allow us to think and get in touch with what's going on, meditating, journaling, therapy, prayer, asking for help, all those things are important. Um, and I think, we've talked about the importance of sound financial education. I have gotten mine from a Black fintech company, which has really helped to change my life. But that financial education is imperative. Um, and I would say also being willing to advocate for ourselves, understanding the importance of our time, how time is. I mean, time is a resource, and once we lose time, we can't get that back.
Right.
One of the crazy decisions I made was as a single mom going through divorce, getting my car repossessed, losing a house or two, was I made the decision to work part-time. And people said, I mean, like, why would you work part-time? Because I wanted my time. I wanted to spend time with my children. I wanted time to work on the things that were pleasing to me. I wanted to go to dance class. I wanted to work on my art. I wanted to play my flute. I wanted to work on my business. And I wanted to spend some time with my with my children, especially with my youngest one. Having been, having children 15 years apart, having had one experience, I didn't want that time to just fleet by as it had the first time.
Mhm.
Um, and the other one thing I would say is to stop procrastinating. You
Right.
know, allow yourself, like Okiba said, to get off Pride Rock, have an honest look at where we are on our financial journey, seek professional help,
Mhm.
non-judgmental help, get the
Mm.
support that we need for where we want to go. And it's going to be really hard to take that self-assessment if we are not taking some time out to really do that self-evaluation.
Absolutely.
So I just, thank you all so much for this conversation. This is the first of many that we're going to have. We are going to follow this conversation up within the week or so with the live, and I'll publish that information. I'm hoping to be able to get this call on my YouTube channel, which is called Mind and Manna. I center the voices of Black women who want to level up their finances in order to have a more intentional way of life that includes freedom, rest, travel, and ease. And I'm having conversations with my good friends so that we can empower each other and empower our communities. Um, so I'm going to trust Jackie to help me figure out how to get this onto my channel. But just want to ask you all to like, subscribe, share the information if this is helpful to you. In our coming up talks, you'll get to learn more about both Jackie and Okima and how you can support and follow them as well. But I just want to thank you all so much for this time this evening as we are talking about the importance of mental health and our finances this month of May, which is Mental Health Month. So thank you so much, ladies. I look
Thank
forward to
you.
seeing you.
All right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.